Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Hope is incensed over Carter's request. According to Friday, February 14th spoilers on The Bold and the Beautiful, Ivy Forrester and Electra Forrester are waiting for some launch results, and Hope Logan will be incensed about Carter Walton's request. Now that the jewelry line is formally starting, Electra and Ivy at Forrester Creations will experience some concern. After all, Ivy might run out to conduct some publicity while Electra speaks with Will Spencer and a few other important people in the main office. When Katie Logan checks online and sees how the latest jewelry line offers from Forrester are being received, she will undoubtedly have positive things to say. This line will undoubtedly be successful, so you can expect that Will convey his pride in Electra. Brooke Logan, Zend Forrester Dominguez, Carter, and Hope will also have an opportunity to comment on the launch outcomes. Hope would question why Carter doesn't seem to be genuinely happy, though, given his nasty attitude. Naturally, Brooke has been putting a lot of effort into helping Carter see that his coup was improper. Carter is struggling with mounting remorse over how all of this transpired and misses having Ridge Forrester as his best friend. Carter is under a lot of pressure to change his mind because Daphne Rose has been attempting to appeal to his conscience as well at Steffy Forrester's request. Hope will be shocked when Carter proposes in private that perhaps they ought to apologize to Ridge and Steffy. Hope's shock will soon give way to rage as she tries to squash the notion and challenges Carter's change of viewpoint. Daphne will be busy catching up with Ridge, Taylor Hayes, and Eric Forrester, John McCook, at the Forrester mansion as Carter and Hope argue. Daphne may use this as an opportunity to reassure everyone that Steffy's plan will succeed. At last, Will and Electra will let their love to blossom for a while. As Electra and Will celebrate the success of the jewelry line launch, our B&B forecast suggests some intense moments. Is it time for Brooke to embrace her dignity and stop begging Ridge? Concern has been raised by Brooke Logan's, Catherine Kelly Lang, unrelenting pursuit of Ridge Forrester, Torsten K., according to spoilers and updates for The Bold and the Beautiful. Is there any possibility that Brooke will eventually stop begging for Ridge and take back her dignity? When Brooke slapped Ridge in a fit of rage, she had the right idea. Viewers experienced a fleeting sense of hope during a dramatic incident in which Brooke slapped Ridge to defend herself. However, it appears that Brooke has gone back to her previous behavior, constantly reminding Ridge of their alleged fate and begging him to come back. Brooke insists that her actions are in the best interests of Forrester Creations, despite the fact that some people may feel sorry for Ridge and consider her choice to be a betrayal of their relationship. Although she is working to return the business to Ridge and Steffy Forrester, Jacqueline McInnes would, it is understandable that Ridge would be wary of that possibility. Ridge clearly lacks faith in Brooke, which may even be the reason he keeps switching between her and Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig. Ridge's back and forth between women reveals his actual personality. The significance of Ridge's relationship with Brooke is made abundantly clear by his quick reconnection with Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig. The fact that Ridge moved away from Brooke so quickly suggests that he had one foot firmly planted in his past with Taylor. We all know that this is a common pattern, but it may cause some people to take notice if it were a new occurrence. Every time Ridge's relationship with Brooke falters, he always turns to Taylor, so it's time for Brooke to accept this fact. When problems occur, Ridge automatically jumps to Taylor's aid, but she needs to start taking care of herself. Additionally, Taylor needs to stop clinging to Ridge and start choosing herself again. Since Ridge is a player and not a potential husband, both women really need to learn to respect themselves and acknowledge that their hero is more of a zero than a knight in shining armor. Until Ridge finally understands he wants his true love back, Taylor seems happy to be a stand-in for Brooke and play second fiddle in Ridge's affections. Perhaps B&B should allow Ridge, Taylor, and Brooke to get off this never-ending cycle of love as it's becoming more and more repetitive. We really hope Brooke would stop begging Ridge to return and instead put her own dignity first by going on with her life. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem possible as long as the show maintains the notion that Ridge and Brooke are the ideal couple. Hope and Steffy quarrel about Brooke. According to Thursday, February 13th spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Daphne Rose gave Carter Walton some advice, while Steffy Forrester and Hope Logan argued about Brooke Logan. Ridge and Eric Forrester were reassured by Taylor Hayes that Carter's former self was still present at the Forrester mansion. Taylor was optimistic that Carter would finally change his mind and escape Hope's control. Hope saw that Carter wasn't as thrilled about the jewelry line debut at Forrester Creations as he ought to be. Hope assumed Carter wasn't sure if it would work, so she reassured him and believed he should be enjoying his time. It goes without saying that considering the effort Brooke had been making to reach Carter, he was truly struggling with guilt. Daphne was still sure she could convince Carter that Hope had deluded him in the design office. Daphne, however, did not see the need to abandon the seduction approach. In addition to this increased emphasis on Carter's conscience, Daphne intended to continue using it. Steffi got the impression that Daphne actually liked Carter as she spoke about how attractive he was. Daphne acknowledged that saving Carter from Hope was now her personal quest, even though helping Steffi was her top concern. Hope arrived later and scented Daphne's scent from earlier at the design studio. In the end, Steffi brought up the jewelry line debut and Hope's ongoing opposition of the coup. Hope made it apparent that nothing would alter the power shift, therefore Steffi had better adjust to it. When Brooke showed up during the fight, she was uncomfortable with Hope's position, particularly after Steffi emphasized the impact this was having on Ridge and Eric. Steffi had an opportunity to irritate Hope by implying that even her mother was beginning to see the light after Brooke left. While Ridge was reunited with Taylor, Steffi pretended that Brooke was suffering from being alone. Hope made fun of Ridge's lack of commitment and reassured Steffi that Brooke's conscience wasn't an issue. In Hope's opinion, Brooke was an excellent CEO who worked well with Carter. In the main office, back with Daphne, she held Carter's hand and confessed that she had been thinking about him. With a perplexed expression on his face, Carter asked directly if Daphne was pursuing him. After a brief interruption from Charlie Weber, Dick Christie, Daphne went back to her task. Daphne found it odd to think about managing Forrester Creations without the Forresters, and she assumed Carter felt the same way. Daphne also mentioned that Hope was completely enamored with Carter. Daphne implied that Carter would do everything to keep the relationship going, including betraying a friend, as Hope seemed to be giving him all the love and dedication he was longing for. Brooke listened and observed from the doorway as Daphne made hints that Carter wasn't who he truly was during this takeover. Before rushing away, Daphne leaned in close and asked Carter to consider what she had said. Carter felt that Brooke meant their love for Hope when she said that they shared something in common during Thursday's B&B show. Brooke maintained that they loved Ridge equally and that she knew Carter must miss him just as much as she did. Brooke pointed out that Ridge belonged at Forrester Creations, while Carter stood there looking thoughtful. According to spoilers for The Bold and the Beautiful, Carter's guilt will continue to weigh heavily, so stay tuned for our predictions on the unsettling developments in his relationship with Hope. Eric's impatience, Hope's false security, and Daphne and Brooke's plea. This is the ultimate summary of Thursday, February 13, 2025's episode of The Bold and the Beautiful. Carter Walton receives a plea from Brooke Logan and Daphne Rose in today's episode. Carter will also receive a warning from Daphne regarding Hope Logan. Bittersweet, Carter Walton. Today marks the debut of the jewelry line at Forrester Creations. Hope and Carter talk about how this is the first new creation from Forrester. From the other side of the office, Brooke is also listening. Carter smiles weakly. Hope would have expected Carter to be more enthusiastic. Ivy and Electra Forrester's jewelry brand is expected to be a big success, according to Hope. Hope claims that Carter is to blame for this. Carter is reassured by Hope that it's acceptable to feel proud and relish this moment. Read more, discover what transpired on B&B yesterday. After looking at pictures of Stephanie and Eric Forrester, played by John McCook, the manager turns to look at Brooke. Eric Forrester is impatient. Regarding Forrester Creations, Eric is eager. According to Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig, Brooke asserts that Carter is doubting his choices. That implies that the old Carter can still be brought out, according to the PDoc. Ridge Forrester paces as he considers the treachery of his best friend. Taylor believes that the corporation will return shortly once Steffy Forrester Finnegan, Jacqueline McInnes Wood, performs a miracle. Eric is interested in learning more about Steffy's strategy. Steffy wants to appeal to Carter's conscience, according to Ridge. Eric cynically says, "Good luck with that. I hope Logan's poison." According to the Thursday, February 13, 2025, recap of The Bold and the Beautiful, Steffy informs Daphne that they must get rid of Hope. The goal of the seduction war is now to persuade Carter to turn the LLC around. Daphne does not wish to rule out seduction entirely. When it comes to Hope's poison, Daphne is certain she can persuade Carter. Steffy is reminded by Daphne that Carter is not permanently gone and can still be contacted. Daphne's genuine affection for Carter surprises Steffy. Daphne has made it her personal goal to rescue Carter from Hope. Hope comes in a short while after Daphne left. Hope is able to detect Daphne's presence in the office. According to both of them, Daphne is intoxicating. Hope and Steffy argue until Brooke walks in. Steffy is advised by Hope to simply accept the success of their new business plan. Steffy thinks this might spell disaster for the business. When Brooke can no longer take it, she leaves. Steffy points out that even Hope's mother recognizes the wrongness of her actions. Steffy is crazy, in Hope's opinion. Hope is certain that Brooke has a clear conscience. Read more, Shin at stake, Steffy and Finn divorce due to Luna bomb in The Bold and the Beautiful spoilers? Daphne Rose's justification. Daphne walks into the CEO's workspace. Carter detects Daphne's fresh, spicy scent right away. Dick Christie's character Charlie Weber enters clumsily and jokes that Carter didn't get the security clearance. Charlie is even aware of the nose. Charlie swoons over Esther Valentine, Kate Linder, his lady friend in Genoa City. Carter and Daphne are left alone by Charlie. Given how he achieved his accomplishment, Daphne queries if he can truly appreciate it. According to the nose, he is not being authentic. It is said that Carter desires love, and what Hope provides him feels a lot like that. Now, he is addicted. Abruptly, Daphne and Carter saw Brooke standing at the door. Brooke approaches Carter as Daphne leaves. According to Brooke, Carter ought to pay attention to Daphne, the takeover was incorrect. Carter acknowledges that he and Brooke both miss Ridge. For so long, Brooke had been caught up in her own fears, clinging to Ridge as if his love were the only thing that validated her existence. Every hushed vow and little passionate moment had stoked the hope that perhaps, just possibly, Ridge's love would one day be complete and unfailing. But with time, the never-ending cycle of begging and rejection started to undermine not just her self-esteem but also her confidence. Brooke's constant pleas to Ridge had turned into a warning story, a moving reminder that depending on someone else for happiness was a risky game that could ultimately leave her broken and alone in the glitzy but harsh world of Forrester Creations, where power struggles and shifting alliances frequently determined one's fate. Ridge had dominated Brooke's life for years. Every time he hesitated or veered, she felt as though a piece of her heart was being torn away because her identity was so intricately linked to his feelings. The never-ending cycle of pleading for attention, hoping for reconciliation, and then having to face the heartbreaking letdown of his lack of interest had taken a toll. Ridge's feelings were as erratic as a fluctuating tide, at times warm and inviting, at other times frigid and distant. It wasn't that he hadn't showed her moments of love or that he hadn't valued her in his own way. Day after day, Brooke found herself wallowing in that inner whirlpool, holding on to the shards of a love that was never really hers. However, there had always been a faint, almost undetectable voice inside of her, a whisper of self-worth that maintained she was worthy of more than a love that required constant begging. As Brooke saw the results of her own actions, this inner voice that had been suppressed by years of compromise and heartbreaks started to surface. She would find herself thinking, what if I stopped begging, in private, away from the spotlight and the examining gaze of both fans and enemies? Instead of constantly humbling myself in an attempt to get a small portion of Ridge's attention, what if I decided to stand tall and demand the respect I so much desired? The thought solidified into something indisputable on a particularly trying night when she was under the pressure of yet another painful rejection. Brooke started to realize the agonizing reality that was presented to her in the quiet seclusion of her own thoughts, with the neon glow of the city shining through her penthouse's windows. The unrelenting chase of Ridge had not only weakened her sense of self, but also cost her chances for true happiness and personal development. She realized that her identity had been subordinated to a guy whose loves were as ephemeral as the wind, with every tear that dropped and every agonized sigh that left her lips. Her realization of how strong she had been in the past, when she was a powerful force in her own right, not afraid to stand on her own 2 feet and declare her independence, was the pivotal moment. Though buried beneath years of heartache and self-doubt, those memories started to come back to life like shards of a lost song. She recalled a time when her ambition, brilliance, and unmistakable magnetism demanded respect on their own, independent of Ridge's approval. She realized with the force of a tidal wave that if she kept on this path of persistent begging, she would not only lose the woman she used to be, but she would also lose the opportunity to shape her future according to her own goals and aspirations. Brooke decided then and there that a drastic change was needed. Regaining her self-respect and creating a life independent of the ebb and flow of another person's emotions was the first step in this difficult path. It required accepting the harsh reality that love stops being a nurturing force and instead becomes a chain that prevents one from experiencing real progress when it devolves into a string of cries and unanswered questions. This realization was both freeing and terrifying for Brooke. She was both excited and afraid at the idea of standing by herself and claiming her value without Ridge's approval as a support system. She was aware that the path ahead would be difficult because old habits don't go away, and Ridge's occasional warmth was a sultry holdover from the past. But she also realized that in order to really thrive, she would have to stop relying on his approval all the time. Adopting self-respect required making tough decisions. It required her to learn to say no to the allure of a poisonous relationship and yes to a life in which she prioritized her own needs. Even when it was buried behind the burden of demands from others, it meant taking comfort in the strength she had always possessed. Brooke experimented with her new resolve in the days that followed. She began making time for herself, finding her passions, re-establishing connections with old acquaintances, and even establishing new professional ambitions, rather than frantically answering every call from Ridge or waiting for his next comforting message. Every little act of self-care turned into a step toward becoming a stronger version of herself. Even the most turbulent seas may eventually calm down, as she was reminded by the repetitive smashing of waves during her long walks by the ocean. She found a reflection of her inner strength and resiliency in the books and artwork she spent hours absorbed in. She gradually came to realize that her value was innate, burning brilliantly within of her, and just awaited recognition rather than being dependent on the approval of others. There were some hurdles to the change. There were times when she would feel the same pain of wanting Ridge's attention again, when old habits would come back to haunt her, and she would question whether she had made a snap decision. However, each setback fueled a fresh will to keep going. Brooke discovered how to face her weaknesses and the upsetting recollections of previous betrayals without letting them dictate her destiny. She realized that self-respect was a journey, a process of ongoing introspection and development, rather than a destination. As she walked this difficult journey, she found that the more she valued herself, the less she needed to hold on to the dwindling hope of a love that had long since faded. Brooke's metamorphosis was unexpected and motivating for those around her. Her newfound confidence emanated from her, and friends and coworkers noticed the difference in her behavior. She started to be perceived differently even by Ridge, who had before been the center of her emotional universe. She was no longer the lady who begged at his door, her voice filled with despair and her eyes full with tears. Rather, she became a powerful person who was respected for her own strength and confidence rather than because of her relationship with him. There were challenges associated with this change in dynamics. Ridge found it difficult to adjust to the new Brooke, who no longer sought his approval and had learned to stand on her own, and the old habits of their turbulent relationship were difficult to break. During this period of personal transformation, Brooke started to face the agonizing dilemma that had been bothering her for a long time: what if Ridge never shows her love back? Once intolerable, the concept now contained a freeing reality. Perhaps it was time to let go entirely if Ridge refused to accept her as the strong, self-reliant woman she had grown into. When she was able to see a future of her own creating, one in which her happiness was self-generated and unencumbered by the continual need for someone else's approval, the concept of a future shaped by someone else's irrational attachment was no longer alluring. As Brooke proceeded along this road, she began to stitch her identity back together, each piece representing a long-neglected aspect of herself. She pursued activities and pastimes that brought back memories of the lively person she had always been, reconnecting with passions she had previously put aside. The never-ending cycle of asking and pleading gradually gave way to a peaceful confidence, the conviction that she was deserving of respect, love, and the kind of lasting, profound connection that did not necessitate a continual sacrifice of her self-worth. In her heart, she saw that true love was a soft, caring power that allowed both lovers to develop and thrive together rather than a conflict waged on the battlefield of desperation. Even if the wounds from earlier setbacks still existed, they served as a reminder of her progress towards self-respect rather than as a defining characteristic of who she was. In the larger picture of her life, Brooke realized that this change was about more than simply ending a toxic relationship. It was about taking back her story and changing the course that had been determined by someone else's whims for so long. It was a statement of independence and a rejection to let the love of another person to define who she was. And as the days stretched into weeks and the weeks into months, she found that the more she accepted her own strength, the more she drew into her life satisfying, positive relationships based on respect for one another, a common set of values, and the kind of love that elevates rather than depresses. In the end, Brooke's path to self-respect was a protracted and difficult one, filled with both triumphant and doubtful moments. It meant a strong, unwavering dedication to herself, a vow that she would never again sacrifice her happiness for a love that was anything but steady. Even though the future was unclear and could bring both successes and failures, Brooke had finally arrived to a place where she could confidently declare, "I am enough." The echoes of her past begged her to abandon her old habits in that moment of realization, but they vanished as she accepted a future in which her value was determined by the fortitude and resiliency that had seen her through every hardship rather than by the love of another. It was time for Brooke to stop begging Ridge, to free herself from the shackles of a long-term one-sided love, and to finally recognize the woman she had always been in her heart, a woman who was worthy of dignity, respect, and most importantly, self-love. With each passing day, as she moved further away from the shadows of her past, Brooke began to emerge as a beacon of hope for anybody who had ever felt diminished by the tireless pursuit of a love that did not reciprocate. By doing this, she not only took back her own life but also served as a role model for others, demonstrating that the most potent love tale is one in which the protagonist learns to love herself first.